Guys, let's be quiet.
Yes,
please.
as quiet
First of all, let's welcome Mr. Dave Grohl for coming to the station.
So, we're here with Dave Grohl. And so my first question is, how did you find your love for music?
It kind of started when I have memories of being a little kid in the car with my mom, she sang when she was young. Both my parents were musical. My father was a classically trained flautist, and he played in orchestras and stuff. And my mother was in singing groups with her friends in the 50s, and they were like a cappella traveling singers, and they were just teenagers, but they'd go to competitions. But there was always music around the house, and I remember being maybe like 5 or 6 years old, and this is in the 70s. So music, AM radio music in the 70s was so good. I think now they call it AM gold, but like AM music in the 70s, there are all these singer-songwriters who wrote really beautiful songs that were melodically complex, a lot more musically involved than maybe popular music now. But so my mother, she sort of taught me how to sing harmonies. Like she would sing the lead line, and then she would teach me how to harmonize with it. And I think that's when I really started getting into it. Like, oh wow, it's kind of like a puzzle. You can sort of, it's fun to try to solve a song, to figure out like, oh, I get it. So this part goes this many times, and this is the lead vocal line, and wow, there's a part above it, like a high harmony and a low harmony. And so then I really started listening to songs like, wow, listen to the drums, listen to how the drummers, he's playing slow or he's playing fast, or wow, he's really busy, he does a lot of stuff, and listen to the way this person's screaming. I just really started listening to music, and that's when it became like, it was like a puzzle to me. And so in my house, we didn't have a record player. My mom was a public school teacher, and so on the weekends, she would bring home those crappy record, well, they don't have them anymore, but they used to have like really crappy record players at school that they just smelled old and they were gross, and they had one bad speaker. So we would go and buy one record, she'd bring it home for the weekend, and I'd listen to it all weekend, and then she'd have to take it back to school. So I was young, I was like 6, maybe 6 or 7 years old.
So what was the first instrument you learned how to play?
Trombone.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been a part of many great bands, like Nirvana, Foo Fighters, and then Crooked Vultures. How have you and your style changed? Like style of music?
Well, when you're young, you spaz. And that's just the bottom line. That's true. When you're a kid, you just spaz out. When I was a 16-year-old drummer, I was the biggest spaz you've ever seen in your life.
That's it.
I didn't care about like tempo or time or groove. I just wanted to beat the hell out of the drums and play as fast as I could. That was my biggest. Whereas now, as I've grown older and learned to appreciate new things, as a drummer, I like to just kind of play for the song, so that the song sounds great. And who cares about me? Like, I'd rather be the anonymous guy in the back than spazzing out the whole time. So you live and you learn a lot as a musician. It's good.
So what have you learned like life lesson-wise while maturing in the music industry?
A lot. Well, I mean, just as anyone, it's the same as anyone growing up and growing older and, becoming a parent, becoming independent, and, you learn something new every day. And whether it's a language or how to raise a child or how to play a Zeppelin song or whatever it is, you just sort of, I'll tell you what, as you get older, you realize how little you really know, I think, is what happens. The older you get, the more you realize, God, I don't know half as much as I thought I did, And then you're playing catch up for the rest of your life.
So what's it like being in a band with John Paul Jones that's been so influential?
Pretty nuts. It's pretty cool. I was a huge Zeppelin fan. I am a huge Zeppelin fan. I always was. So I used to listen to Led Zeppelin records like I would study them. And not that I wanted to learn every note, I just wanted to know, like, why did they do that? How come the drummer does it that way? And it's interesting. I wonder why they did that chorus like that. Why they chose that instrument. I was just obsessed with them. It was bootlegs and live video and whatever I could get my hands on. I never got to see them play because they stopped playing before I had a chance to see them play. So after Nirvana became popular, I was trying to think of the first time I met one of them. Oh, I had to interview them for a magazine. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, and this is 1998 or something like that, a long time ago. It was after Nirvana. Foo Fighters were a band, and this magazine called and said, "Hey, I hear you're a big Zeppelin fan. Do you want to interview the singer and the guitar player, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page?" I was terrified, dude, because I knew everything about them, but they had just made this new record, and so they flew me to New York. I had to sit in a room with them and interview them, and I'd never interviewed anybody. I was terrified. But they were really nice. They were great, and it was a good interview, and it turned out okay. But the bass player, John, he was always the low-key one. He was the quiet, intellectual bass player that stayed out of the lead spotlight. And the Foo Fighters we were making a record maybe 8 years ago, and we thought we'd invite a bunch of guests, and I thought, let's invite John Paul Jones to come play. So he showed up, and he was a great guy, and he plays anything you put in his lap. He'll figure it out in about an hour, and he'll play it, and he'll play it well. So whether it's a reed instrument or a brass or a keyboard or a mandolin or a guitar, whatever, he's an incredible musician. And to be in a band with someone like that, who's a hero of mine, but also a genius, the guy's he's a musical genius. Just to play with someone like that, it's an honor to play with them, but it kind of makes you a better musician in a way, because he just sort of radiates this creative energy that makes you feel like everything's okay. And in freeing yourself like that, you just start doing things you've never done before. It's great. He's awesome. He's a good guy.
How did you guys decide to be in a band together?
The Foo Fighters have been on tour for a really long time, a couple of years, for the last record, and I was sick of it. And I didn't want to be in my band anymore, and I didn't want to be on tour anymore. And our band, Foo Fighters, are like a family. We've been together for 16 years, and our kids play with each other's kids, and we're best friends, and we've been through a lot together. So usually after 2 years of being on the road, it's just like, I hate these people. I never want to do this again. But in a way, it's like a family trip that goes on for 2 years. You know what I mean? It drives you insane.
Closer
You
than
go berserk. And so, so my friend Josh from Queens of the Stone Age, I've known him for a long, long time. He's an incredible guitar player and a great producer, and he's just an incredible musician. And I played with him before, and I said, hey, let's do a side project. He said, okay. And then I said, hey, why don't I call John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin? And he's like, are you kidding? I said, no, I have his phone number. His email. So I bumped into him in London, and I said, hey, I got a project. This guy, Josh, from Queens of Stone Age. And then he said he was interested and he wanted to figure it out. So I had my 40th birthday party at Medieval Times.
Sick.
Which was awesome. And I invited him, and he came from London to Medieval Times in Anaheim. I was so psyched. It was so. And I sat him, and he'd never met Josh before, so I sat he and Josh right next to each other. with like the crowns and the jousting and whatever. And then a couple days later, we went to Josh's studio and started jamming. And within like 30 seconds of playing with each other, we were like the best band I'd ever been in. And we weren't even playing something we knew. We were just jamming. And it was totally out of this world. And I swear to God, in 1 minute, I was just like, this is the best band I've ever been in.